Hey everyone, it's Gridiron Geek. I'm coming at you with the review for Star Wars The Last Jedi. And man, it's a big one. I'm a huge Star Wars guy. Have been since I was a little kid, watched the originals, grew up on the prequels, thought they were great as a kid, and realized that, they weren't that great. However, I have liked, since Disney came back with the new ones, I have liked them. I liked Force Awakens. And, I get it. I get that it was, very much the same storyline as the original. It's not lost on me. However, I thought they introduced some really cool characters. Definitely some cool visuals. I think Rogue One expanded upon that. We saw some really cool cinematography we hadn't seen before. One thing I always think of is in Rogue One there was a position where the camera's on the back of an X-Wing coming out of hyperspace, and then you see all the other ones kind of boom 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 out. It was pretty amazing, and The Last Jedi continues that. I think the one of the good things I'm going to say about it is the cinematography was phenomenal. Some of the shots, it starts off that way. It starts where they're on a planet and they look up in the sky and they see the First Order coming out of hyperspace, and you could hear the boom, 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 and it was really like, whoa, wow. And then the Dreadnought shot coming out. Obviously, some of the plans, but we'll get into that a little bit more. I was really trying to kind of write an outline for how I wanted to do this review. However, it's very difficult because there's so much about this that is really good, but there's so much that's really bad, and I left the movie feeling like I don't like it. I really wanted to like it. Obviously, I want more Star Wars movies, and I want to expand on the lore. And the internet's kind of going in the debate. Well, the true Star Wars fans don't really like it, and the true Star Wars fans know to see something different. And I think the issue that I have is there was so much built up in episode 7 to really kind of further the lore, and let's get into some interesting details, like maybe it isn't all black and white, maybe it isn't all Jedi, Sith, everything like that. And right when it's on the cusp of doing something really, really new, it chickens out. It goes back to good and bad and blah blah blah. So, I'm going to kind of get into, I think the best way to do it is just do it kind of act by act. So you start out, you're seeing that I think they're the Rebel Alliance. They're not the Rebel Alliance anymore. They're the Resistance is what they're called now. They're escaping. They're about to get their ship pushed in. And I really didn't really understand, like, at the end of 7, they blow up their big Death Star. Yeah, I get it. And so you think, like, wow, the First Order, like, wow, they must be kind of on the ropes. But they're not. They're still, like, basically the Empire. Like, they made it seem like the Empire kind of ceased, and then, like, I thought that, at the end of the originals anyway, that, the Rebels won, and they were going to make a new Republic and everything. But no, not really. That's not what happened at all, actually. I haven't really read too much of the new canon. I like a lot of the old canon stuff, but that's another debate. So they're running away, and you get the scene with Poe coming up on the ship, and it's kind of funny. I like Poe's humor. I'm not against it. I know some people were really mad, like, oh, it's so cheesy. He said like the mother thing. It went on a little bit too long. I really like Hux though. I think Hux is almost a transition from the old Empire. He talks very much like, oh, the rebels, like rebels, and I think that he's, the Dominic, the guy that's playing him, is doing that on purpose. Like, I think, maybe he is young and he's trying to, overextend and kind of seem like he's more important than he really is. Which I think that's a really interesting take on a character, especially, we're getting a little bit of development of the bad guy, because he's definitely just a lackey, and you can definitely tell when Snoke pops up on the hologram and just pins him around, and it was pretty good scene. Yeah, I just had to look it up real quick. It's Domhnall Gleeson, I think is how you say it. Domhnall. And I thought he was pretty interesting. And I think the coolest thing, and with all the Star Wars, it's war, and we see war in terms of like, oh, it's blasting stuff. But in this one, you saw tactics, and I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. I'd really be really interested to see this in the future. And he's coming in as a light fighter, taking out the ones so the bombers can come, which the bombers, by the way, definitely reminded me of the Slave One, just kind of with a bombing, unit. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool to see. I always like seeing the development of ships and everything. So we see that whole scene, and obviously people die. Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's impactful, I guess. But then we get the character that's Rose's sister. I really can't even remember her name, and it was like, wow, this is actually really impactful. And I know a lot of people have the problem with this scene because, oh, how does gravity work in space? And I don't know. I think there's like the gravitational field of the ship itself, or I didn't really understand. Like, there's an open. Like, it's open at the bottom, so I'm assuming there's like force field that allows like you to go out, kind of like how in in the Star Destroyers they can go out of the force field, but obviously it's like a hangar. However, I don't know. So they show that scene, it's emotional, blah blah blah, and then we start getting into, well, Poe's a hotshot, and I can definitely see that. And I think his character arc was very, I think it was very necessary. However, I think they could have done it completely different. Obviously, it's a transition of Poe going from the hotshot into what a leader really needs to have, the qualities. However, the way they do it is dumb. I mean, it's just straight up dumb. There's so many ways it could be avoided. So we're going to go back. We see Leia. I think, I guess we'll just stick with the storyline for now. Leia's on the ship. Kylo's gonna shoot her, and she gets blown out into space. And I'm like, oh wow! Like, if you watch the scene, it's really like, oh my god! Like, they really wrecked her. Like, she got fucked up. But then it shows space, and I'm like, no, please don't. And then it shows her, and I'm like, okay, maybe we're gonna get a little like. Kind of like a little like a ding 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 or something, and just be like, wow, the character ended. But then her hand moved, and I'm like, stop. I can't get on board with this. And then there's memes all over, and I love the memes. It's just with the Superman thing, and it's the whole her using the Force to, like, that power. It made it took me out of the movie, and I think it took most people out of the movie. And I felt that way a lot in this movie. Like, with Star Wars, usually you're so entranced, just wow, and then it just took me out, and it was really unfortunate. I think they should have just committed to killing the character. I know they said they weren't going to do it, but then they're not going to CGI her in the next one, and I'm like, so are we just going to get a cheesy like write off, like, oh, she's on Dantooine or something? I don't know. So she's in her, space bubble and everything like that. And so that's what I remember of that storyline. We get Laura Dern in there as Hodor, whatever her name was, Holdo. She's useless, honestly. I don't mind Laura Dern. I liked her, and obviously Jurassic Park is the only thing I know her from. But I didn't need to see purple hair there. And that leads on to the whole storyline, how Poe's like, well, what's going on? And she's like, hey, flyboy, what? You don't need to know anything about this, flyboy. And he's like, nah, I obviously, like, I'm in charge, even though, like, and she's like, well, your rank isn't exactly what it was a couple minutes ago. And he's like, yeah, technically, yeah, but you're kind of an asshole. So the whole storyline where she just didn't tell him what was happening, when it could have been like, we're trying to get to this planet, it used to be an old rebel base. Yeah. And he would be like, oh, okay, cool, no mutiny. And she's like, nah, you don't need to do a mutiny. And he's like, Bet. I didn't want to do a mutiny anyway. So we'll switch over, and then we see Finn, wake up, and he has the, what I'm assuming, I know people made fun of it. I thought it was kind of interesting. It's like a back-to-tank, but like in suit form. So it's a little more flexible. He can get, I don't know, he's not underwater, but I thought it was pretty interesting. And the first thing he gets out and he asks, where's Rey? And then we transition to, I believe it's Octu, where, we catch up exactly where it ended, and she's handing, Rey's handing Luke the lightsaber, and he throws it behind his back, and it's just there. And I was like, okay, all right, I didn't think it was going to be funny, and it wasn't funny, honestly. Like, I was like, one of those, like, huh, like, yeah, but I don't know what they were expecting. The part that actually I thought was funny is the Porgs looking at it, and one's just like stepping on it, and you're like, oh fuck. That was funny. I get that. And I'm gonna hit these Porgs real quick. Porgs didn't bother me. Porgs, obviously, the last one was like shoehorned at the very end of the movie. It's not that big of a deal. Everyone was really like worried about the Porgs, like it's gonna make the integral, like they're gonna come and do something like the Ewoks. No, they're just Porgs. They're just there, and Chewbacca ate one. It was kind of funny. So obviously Luke has gone through some insane trauma, kind of blaming himself for Ben's turn to the dark side, and Rey, and he's like, nah, Rey, I'm not gonna train you. And she's like, yeah, you should train me, like the dark side's back. And he's like, no. And I expected that. I expected him not to want to train her, and that's okay. I think that's actually really interesting. However, when the movie was coming out, there was interviews where Mark Hamill was like, I actively disagreed with pretty much everything you did with the character. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, some movies just do, like, some guys just do that, and they're like, oh, it's just so, wow, I didn't think anything like that would happen. After watching it, I agreed. I was like, this is not hashtag not my Luke. It definitely felt that way. I couldn't believe what they did. Because Luke was always the symbol after Vader did atrocities, just murdering, all the younglings. And he was like, no, I definitely sense the light in him. And that was like a dude that was probably 98% dark and like 2% light. He was a 2% milk. And he was like, no, I could definitely pasteurize that. And we'll get to the milk reference in a little bit. But, and so to see him, what they end up doing in a flashback is show him look at Ben, who I'm assuming, would be at worst 50-50. And look and be like, whoa, he totally pulled a little hut down on me and turned on me and went to the dark side. And I was just like, okay. And then, we see the what actually happened, where Luke actually ignited his saber, which was just so not Luke Skywalker. Like, I don't think Luke would do that to a random Padawan. That, like, and this guy could have been like, he could have been full dark side, and he would have been like, oh, I really don't want to have to do this. But to his nephew, I couldn't. It's just not Luke, and I think that was a major issue. Is like, Hamill said in interviews, he's like, I don't even think of this as the same Luke. This is just this movie's version. So it's like almost like he's playing it like a multiverse, and this is like, well, I guess it's gonna happen. I just don't buy it, and that was definitely one of my biggest issues. Is they really just screwed Luke up. And so Rey stays there on Octu, and it's like, no, you're gonna train me. And he's like, nah, you get to watch my daily routine. man, this guy's daily routine is very extra, to the point where he goes and milks a titty on something it's like a walrus, and it looks back like while he's doing it at Rey, and he's like, welp, I'm getting milked today. And Luke just sits there and gets all this green shit. And I was like, oh, it's like blue milk. And I'm thinking like, oh, well, let's find out where blue milk came from. It wasn't even blue. It was green. Like, I saw it for a second. I was like, oh, I guess we're getting... That was real weird. Like, I saw it and I was, no, come on. And yet he milked it. And then he does this like fishing thing. And she's like, watch out. And like, it's not that big of a deal. Seeing the X-Wing down there was cool. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. Underwater. But nothing really comes of it. That's pretty much the last we see it. And then after a bit, he's like, okay, you know what? I'll give you 3 lessons. Because obviously, like, she found the tree that has, all the text in it and everything. And he's like, I'll give you 3 lessons. And I watched it, and I was like, I remember at the end, I didn't really think much of it. When I watched it the second time, I was like, wait a minute, what were the 3 lessons? And when I watched it, legit, like, there was one, and it wasn't really even a lesson. He was like, reach out, touch your feelings. And she, like, literally reaches out. That was a very natural, some natural comedy there. With the leaf on her hand. It's like, oh wow, you're really strong with the Force, and smacks it, and it was very funny. I like that, and that fits within the Star Wars universe. And I think they try a little bit too much at times to be funny. I think that was very natural. I liked it a lot. And he sees her kind of exploring the planet, and specifically the island. And I thought it was like, wow, this is really cool to see. Basically a force power, we've never seen from their point of view. Like, they always kind of like, oh, I'm reaching out, I can feel this person, something like that. And she goes and sees the dark, and it's kind of this real cool shot too, of this hole. It looks like it's covered in like mollusks, and then water comes up, and he's like, oh, you didn't even try to resist the dark side. And I was like, oh wow, okay, this is pretty interesting. Kind of the same idea that Yoda had on Dagobah with being so close to the cave. Which, I mean, in my personal like fan theories that I've heard, the one I always like is he hid next to the cave because it was such a powerful dark side that his light side, like if someone was trying to sense him, it would kind of negate it and cancel it out. So it allowed him to hide. So I was definitely thinking, wow, really interesting that the first Jedi temple is on a planet with such a powerful dark side thing to show the yin and yang, which is definitely a symbol we see consistently throughout the movie. Quite a bit. I mean, there was even a little pond up near the rock where he was training her. And I was like, wow, we're actually going to see I thought the merits of the Sith, or, the dark side. And we kind of dabbled. We dabbled a little bit. He was saying that, the hubris of the Jedi, which is definitely true. I thought it was really interesting that he understood, like, oh, Jedi weren't perfect. And I thought we were going to see a little more of that. Definitely didn't, though. Yeah, I mean, it was really one conversation. Really powerful conversation, though. I thought it was really interesting. So, obviously he's fearful of training her, and, he doesn't want to, have another one turn to the dark side, blah, 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 blah. And then, I'm going to say the star of the movie, Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. Ben Solo almost. It almost felt like two different characters at some point. He stopped being Kylo so much, and it wasn't exactly when the helmet was destroyed. Definitely, though, throughout the movie, you're like, wow, it's Ben. Definitely felt, I don't know, it was kind of just a feeling you get, like, he's more than just the mask, which I thought was so good. So interesting to really develop his character. So I'll switch kind of over to, the Kylo Snoke type story. Kylo's got a badass ship. If you saw that TIE fighter, you would be like, fuck, that's awesome. Like, I don't know. It was very, very cool to see. And, you know, he doesn't do much with it. That's fine. He pulls off and doesn't shoot Leia, and then the other ones followed his lead, which I don't really understand what that means. Like, if I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I guess you just follow him. Like, you could just say follow me, and like, oh, if there's stuff to shoot it. And he shows a lot of emotion throughout the movie. He's got a very... It's a face that shouldn't be behind a mask, honestly, because, like, as goofy as Adam Driver looks, because he is a goofy looking dude, he can really project his character with his face really well, and his eyes do a really good job of that. So I thought it was really interesting, you know, him meeting with Snoke and just seeing, like, wow, Snoke is powerful as shit. And I love, as cinematography goes, the set for Snoke's like chamber room, or Snoke's, you know, whatever room you want to call that, the red room, Snoke's red room. Thought it was really cool. Visually looked amazing. The Praetorian Guards were really cool. All having different weapons. It was pretty interesting too. And seeing Snoke, God, you know Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis just knocks everything out of the park. So excited when, you know, even when the first one came out, you're like, oh wow, we're getting Andy Serkis as a CGI character. So I was definitely real excited for that, and he nails it. I mean, there's times you're looking at Snoke and the CG, like, they did it really well. Like, obviously you can tell it's a CG character, but there's times where he's inflecting so well that you forget, man. You're just looking at a fucking alien talking, or 9 foot tall, whatever. So, you know, obviously he's, you know, saying we gotta get Luke Skywalker, blah, blah, blah. And Kylo and Rey start getting these connections. And I know I like the term, like, texting or FaceTime or whatever for it, but these are definitely some of the best scenes in the movie. And I thought it was really cool to see a new way to use the Force, and I thought they definitely expanded upon the Force in this, and you could definitely understand why. Some of it gets kind of stale after a while. Like, yes, we know Force push is a thing. So to see the connection, and as that builds, it leads to some really interesting conversations. Even questions I have as, like, a fan, where Kylo's like, can you see my surroundings? Or, because I can only see you. And she's like, I don't really care, you're a monster. And he's like, maybe. Who knows? And he's like, say it out loud. It reminded me of Twilight in the Forest, like, say it, vampire. So and those scenes were great, really developed them. And I love that at the very end you see that they kind of kept that connection, because you weren't really sure, did that go out with Snoke, when Snoke's like, I'm the one that connected you guys. But it's really cool that we're definitely going to get more of that, which is really, really interesting. So I gotta say it, you know, when I'm watching this scene where she's like, can you put something on? And Kylo's like, no. And it shows him. I'm like, oh, holy shit, Adam Driver is fucking huge. And then I'm like, wait a minute, it kind of looks off. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the hair or something. And I'm like, his body looks really, like, he must have a very small head. Or maybe it's just they enhance it to make him look buffer, or whatever you want to do. Obviously, he was in good shape. It looked a little off. And I've seen, you know, the internet have a field day with that, as the internet often does with anything that's off. But, you know, again, those conversations are really great, and Adam Driver really does a good job, you know, portraying his character. So I'm gonna get to the one storyline everyone hates, because it's deserved. I walked out. I remember watching it. And a few years ago, I was watching another movie with a buddy, and he said, what movie are we watching? And I believe it was I think it was Spider-Man 3. And you know the scene where he's dancing and stuff, and you're like, what? I thought I was here to see Peter Parker. I thought I was here to see Star Wars. And I'm in Canto Bight looking at these damn goat horse things. And I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? So I do like John Boyega a lot. I really thought his portrayal of Finn in the first one was great. And obviously he does a good job with this. It's just bad writing, is what it comes down to. And then you introduce a character in Rose, you know, and we definitely see the other side of war. which is okay. I don't mind seeing that. And it might just be me personally, but Kelly Marie Tran really takes me out of it takes me out of Star Wars, because she reminds me so much of the girlfriend in Knocked Up that says, "Want to switch boyfriends? Oh, just kidding." And I can't get it out of my head. So I'm watching this whole movie and I'm like, I just can't take her seriously. She's not a great actress. That's okay. It's not like Star Wars has had a lot of great actors or actresses throughout the course of history. Let's look at Hayden Christensen for one. But the storyline just isn't necessary at all. And as far as like, okay, we're going to develop these characters, and usually the second movie in a franchise is where we get a lot of character development. They felt that they had to develop Finn into a hero. I thought we already got there. You know, at the end of 7, he defected and he realized like, wow, this stuff is really messed up, and like he was trying to run away. But at the end of 7, he's a hero. You know, I mean, really, he stood up for Rey, and it might just be his love for Rey or whatever. And maybe they're just trying to get him more into the, you know, I want to say rebellion, the resistance. But it just didn't really feel necessary. I felt like we could have had a different development for his character. And God, we didn't need Rose. I thought, I definitely wish Rose was the one that died, and we got the girl on the ship that died, much more so than actually getting Rose. So they had their whole plan, and I'm gonna butcher her name because I Lupita Nyong, I believe, is the award-winning actress that does Maz, and she was really interesting in part 1, or part 7, excuse me, the first of the trilogy. And I was like, wow, we're gonna see, you know, a little bit more of her character. Nah, she died, presumably anyway. And then I saw she was back for this, and I was like, okay, why even bring her back in the way that they did, though? In a hologram where she's like, labor dispute, pew pew, bye, go get this like code breaker, and it just didn't, you know, like work. I'm like, okay. It was a waste, really. And it's kind of like the argument in the Thors, how Idris Elba is not getting a bigger screen time role, you know. Obviously he's just Heimdall, but Idris Elba is a great actor, and he definitely deserves much more. However, let's go back to Star Wars as we're talking about The Last Jedi here. So we have this whole storyline where they have to go to Canto Bight to get a code breaker to get into this ship thing, or the, you know, Snoke's main ship, to get past the shield, blah blah blah. And it's just dumb. It doesn't need to be in the Star Wars universe, honestly, at all. But definitely not in main storyline canon. I felt that the Canto Bight storyline could have been done in Rogue One, because we're kind of exploring a little bit different areas. So why not explore, you know, that both sides profit from war? That's okay. However, just in this movie, it didn't really fit. And I think most fans figure that out. It wasn't hard to see. We get to Canto Bight, we're seeing a lot of, you know, they're trying to use the CG / prosthetics and, you know, the practical effects. I'm a huge proponent of practical effects. I think it just holds up over time a lot more, especially if you can use a mixture of it. See 1993 Jurassic Park still has some of the best graphics around. And I just didn't care, is really what it came down to. That whole storyline, when that's on TV, or when it's on the actual screen, you just don't give a shit. You're like, okay, I'm here for lightsabers, though, not seeing the negative side effects of war can put, you know, people. And they put this one shot in there where they have animal abuse and child abuse going on at the same time, and you're like, wow, these things are really bad. And yeah, obviously they are. I don't really care in a Star Wars. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, Luke was out there abusing them titties earlier, and we didn't say anything about that. That was front and center. So, you know, and then they get captured. You know, shit doesn't go their way, and that's okay. you know, I get that things obviously shouldn't always go the main character's way. There should be some setbacks. But this whole storyline suffers from it. It's a setback, and it's a setback after a setback, which ends up leading the whole storyline to a complete movie setback. Doesn't really develop anything. If anything, it just forces these characters down my throat that I don't want to see, circa Jar Jar Binks. And I really just didn't want to see it anymore. Then we get introduced to Benicio del Toro's character. I like Benicio del Toro. I think he's a pretty good actor. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking when they're like, hey, why don't you just stutter every line? And not like this weird, like you feel bad, more about like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking with that. Real weird. Didn't fit in. And I thought, you know, maybe, okay, he's going to do it a little bit. You know, I thought it was like, oh, maybe he had some too many death sticks. So definitely didn't care for that. Then they get out or something. I don't, you know, and then BB-8 does all this shit that's just stupid. So forget that storyline. Let's go back to Poe's storyline where, you know, he sent Finn and everyone out on a mission, and he's kind of sitting there like antsy, and shit's going down where like all their shit's getting blown up, but they're running out of fuel, which is like something new we haven't seen in Star Wars. Doesn't mean it's good. like want to watch a movie about a car running out of gas and we get to like flashback to it like every so often? No. Let's see The Dark Knight Rises. Want to see a movie about a siege? Oh, you mean that really long drawn out thing that like takes a long time and is very, very boring? Yeah, no. Please, no. Excuse me. So I'm not even going to get into more of that. You know, they're running away. It's boring as hell. Again, it's another storyline that we don't really need to see as much of, because we don't really care. There's characters that we don't really care. Like, do we care about Leia? Of course we care about Leia, but she's already down for the count, really, what we think anyway. And then we have, you know, Laura Dern. And I'm going to get back real quick. They killed Admiral Akbar, and they hella, like, slided it, like, oh yeah, Admiral Akbar's gone. Nah, you can't just do that to my childhood, though. He gives me too many memes to go with. Really one. But I was like, man, we're going to just kill Admiral Akbar like that? All right, whatever. So we'll skip around a little more. I mean, really, there's so much to go over in this movie. It's so much, you know, that works and so much that doesn't. So let's go back to Acto, and we'll see. You know, we got Chewbacca there. Chewbacca's in the movie for fan service, pretty much. Like, what does he really do in this whole movie? He eats a porg, and people are like, oh, thank God. One less fucking porg on the screen. And even that was kind of a funny scene. They use the practical effects for the porgs for the most part, and it was funny to watch them jump. Because it looked very much like the originals, where something would obviously, like a thing wouldn't jump straight up in the air like that. But we'll go back, and, you know, we're seeing, and I think something that no one else has addressed. I've seen a lot of reviews for the movie. No one else has addressed that we saw flashbacks for the first time in Star Wars ever. Like, when have they shown a flashback? Like, I was really racking my brain. If you can think one, leave me a comment or something, because I couldn't think of one. And I thought what was really, really interesting, and this is something they kind of backdoor, they might retcon it if it didn't work. The back flashes. The flashbacks that we see are point of view. And which is something that has always been one of the areas that Star Wars has done, is like, oh, it's all kind of, you know, in the original trilogy, it's like, from a certain point of view, you know, Anakin did die. And this was very much from Luke's point of view. And I think the first one that he saw was definitely like, this is what Luke, the gist of the whole interaction was Luke came in there and, you know, Kylo basically turned on him. But we see Kylo's perspective, And dude wakes up and he's like, oh, my master's over with a fucking lightsaber, looking real creepy. They did some weird eye shit on him, and he looked like a damn skeleton of Mark Hamill. And he straight, like, was like, no, I'm going to defend myself. And then we see, you know, what would presumably actually happen, where Luke turned on his lightsaber against all Luke logic in the known universe and was going to kill his own nephew. So with that, Rey's like, nah, you know, I need to leave training because you taught me one thing and it was kind of bullshit. Oh, and there was the part where Rey goes down in the little pit and we see the weird snapping sequence. Another moment that took me out of the movie. I'm like, what movie? Like, I didn't think that I would see a 10-minute snapping segment in my Star Wars. No, they do. and they built up, you know, she's trying to figure out more about her parents. Obviously, we still don't really know. And she wanted to, you know, kind of find her place and everything, which I think was really interesting for the character in general. And so her big plan is to sneak on to, you know, Snoke's ship. Not really, though, like kind of sneak on by getting in a coffin and shoot. And another weird ship, like, I thought was just kind of okay, that's a weird, never seen I didn't know the Millennium Falcon had a space coffin. And, you know, why couldn't she just use the Force like Leia did in this Guardians of the Galaxy space? Where, like, in my mind, when I see movies, space kills you. Like instantly. like you take that helmet, you're done. So when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, they did their space where it's not really, like, you can kind of survive out there a little bit. You're not quite dead, but you're getting there. And that's okay. Because they did that in the first movie, and then they kind of carried it on in the second movie a little bit. We are in the, 22nd movie of Star Wars? Or, like, this has never happened. Why do this now, except just for be like, the Force, meh. So it was kind of dumb, but we'll go back to Rey getting on the ship, and she's gonna go meet Snoke, and they get up to the, you know, she opens her eyes, and, like, Kylo's, like, right there, and, like, well, I didn't really sneak on. I don't know what the plan was. I guess just to be like, I'm just gonna go see Snoke, you know, or try to turn Kylo. So I'm getting to, you know, the best, it's the absolute best stuff out of this movie is Kylo, Rey, and Snoke. All in Snoke's throne room, chamber, whatever you want to call it. And wow, Snoke is powerful, man. Snoke is no joke. Like, just seeing him flex on him is nuts. He definitely does not hold back, and I mean, he just makes it look easy. Like, they try to, and she's like, nope, I'm not moving. And he's like, bet your ass you is. And starts pulling her up real close. She tries to get the saber and everything, and he smacks her in the head with it. And he's like, yeah, you're a kid at the big boy table here. And, you know, we see, you know, Kylo kind of take a real quiet role, obviously knowing his place in front of Snoke. And, you know, to pass his final test, I guess, is what, I mean, I don't know what these tests consist of. And that's one thing that really frustrates me is I don't know, in my personal opinion, the best part of movies like these is the training. I like seeing, like, oh, wow, that is a cool, like a test. The test for Ben, or, you know, whatever you want to, Kylo, is to just kill people. Like, oh, these people are meaningful. Like, it's not that much of a test, I guess. I get Han, but Rey isn't. I don't know. It was weird. And I want to see actual tests, like, you know, in the video games with the Jedi Academy, Jedi Knight games. We saw a lot of really cool stuff. All that's, you know, no longer canon, I guess. And the whole, getting rid of the canon just screws everything up. So he's at this moment where he's like, hey, you're gonna have to kill her. He's like, okay. And, you know, then we have Luke's lightsaber up there, and he does the whole little, like, kind of hand trick. And Snoke's just sitting there just like, oh yeah, I feel it. You're gonna strike down your true enemy. And like he ignites the lightsaber and it cuts Snoke like right down the gut. And you're like, oh fuck. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, really? Like, and it was so much like, as cool as it was, because it's seriously like lighting a lightsaber, you know, letting it go through him, pulling it, and that whole shot you see the lightsaber still on, it's coming towards Kylo, and then Rey's hand goes up and just grabs it right out of the midair, and I'm like, whoa, fuck. Really cool shot. However, we just killed Snoke. Like, what was the point of Snoke? You know, like, and I'm sure, you know, they're going to make books and like, this is why Snoke was a, you know, big bad guy, which is kind of the problem that we had with Grievous. You know, when we saw Grievous on screen, he's coughing. Like, it's like, oh boy, more people with asthma. But if you actually watched, you know, the I think it was Jenny Tartakovsky did the I can never say that guy's name either. He did the cartoons where we see Mace Windu kind of force crush his chest. But Grievous is a badass. And if you guys haven't seen the, it's not the Clone Wars, you know, computer animated series, which is still pretty good. There was 5-minute segments that came on. I remember as a kid watching them on Cartoon Network. And there's a little box set of them. And I think it's just like the Clone Wars saga or something like that. They're hand drawn. Grievous messes some people up in that, and you're like, wow, this is actually like, I'm terrified to see him on screen. And then you see him on screen and it's dumb. So and that's really the issue with Snoke, is as powerful as he is, we don't know who he is. We don't know why he's all scarred and shit. And it's not that you necessarily have to flesh out every character, but he's a big character. And people are like, well, we never got to see where, you know, the Emperor came from in the originals. Well, that's kind of why they made the prequels. Like, it's more the Emperor's story than, I mean, really almost anyone else's. So we don't know who Snoke is, and probably never will, or unless you just, you know, read some of the books. So, waste of a character. Now, to the absolute best scene in this movie. Back to back, very much feels like Ben Solo with Rey, and they fight the Praetorian Guards, and they are hacking and slashing, and this is just like, I'm sitting there, I remember, both times I watched it, I'm just like, mouth agape, jaw on the floor. I'm like, whoa, this is really cool shit. And they, you know, slice and dice. Obviously, super cool scene at the end where, you know, Kylo's in a chokehold. Rey throws a saber. He goes, pew, pew, turns it on real quick, right through the dude's eye. Amazing. And really, when afterward I was thinking, I was like, wow, that was one of the best in Star Wars. I can't really think of a better one, honestly. It might be the best lightsaber sequence in Star Wars. So really, really cool. And this is the pivotal moment where I was in the theater and I was like, wow, this movie is going to take a totally different direction. Is Ben coming to the light? Is Rey going to the dark? Are they just going to kind of do their own thing? And they flop. The whole thing is a waste, because at this moment, I even thought maybe he would kill Rey. And then you're like, wow, ultimate red herring Rey, and this is about a Ben Solo redemption story. It's not. Spoiler, if you haven't noticed, it's definitely not. And it sucks. Because basically what happens is we're back to square one. Rey's good, Kylo's bad. Yep. there's no gray. And it was just really unfortunate. I thought that could be the turning point. And Rian Johnson has come out and said a lot, like, well, every time that a big story, you know, or like a big thing was going to happen, we wanted to go the exact opposite of what people were expecting. And that wasn't a good thing. I think that it was necessary in some moments, but he did it at everything. And it really just wasted. Like, oh, obviously, Snoke's not gonna die. Well, he does, but like that's kind of a waste. And I I feel, after they announced that JJ's gonna come back for the 9th one, he's gonna look at this and like he built this universe. Like it's like he had the room ready and he cleaned up his whole house and he's like, wow, this is gonna be a great day. And Ryan, all you gotta do is just babysit the house. I'll come back, later in the day. And he comes back and just shits on fire and like half the people are dead. And he's like, oh, what? What did you do? Like, I made all this nice stuff and you just fucked it up. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to spend a lot of 9 coming back and fixing it. Which, I mean, it just seems like a waste. Like, instead of, catapulting the story into, a totally new direction, we're going to come back, kind of do a little fan service to appease, maybe Snoke's not dead. I was a big Snoke's Darth Plagueis type thing. So he's come back from the dead before, presumed dead. I always thought the Darth... Have you heard the tragedy of... I suppose not. I always like the Darth Plagueis theory. So maybe Snoke will come back, whatever. Moving on. Luke's kind of troubled. He's like, oh, I'm going to go burn this tree down. And then we get to see Yoda come back. And you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting Yoda. I love that he was a puppet. Thought it was the right choice to go to the older version. He looked really good. However, as it goes on, I didn't notice it the first time. The second time I really noticed it. Yoda kind of went from his normal speak backwards to portraying full sentences and paragraphs and like normal proper English. It didn't feel right. And I didn't understand. Luke's been on there for, I don't know, I would say, let's say 5 years at least. I would say probably closer to 10. Just thinking of like, okay, how old did Ben look when he tried to kill him? Maybe about 10 years younger. You didn't read the books? Like, you didn't think to skim through those? Like, wasn't that kind of the whole point? Like, you coming back here? Like, there's only like a handful and the pages looked really thick. It's kind of like they're picture books. And he was just like, yeah, no, I didn't really read through those. And Yoda was like, page turners, those are not. And yeah, that's not that funny. Like, it's kind of stupid. Like, and he's like, oh, Rey has it inside of her, all whatever. And it's just dumb. What was the point of Jedi training at all? I mean, she went there for 3 lessons, got 1, and then left. So let's see, where are we at? Let's go to, Hodor. And she's like, oh, we were going to a planet all along. Leia comes back to life, stuns Poe, which I thought was, kind of cool to see the stuns back. We saw it, one time in 4, and that was pretty much all we saw, sat for stun. So it's kind of cool to see that back a little, just a little tidbit there. So they're going to go to this planet, and then, whatchamacallit happens. Oh yeah, Finn and Rose get their hacker friend through some bullshit, after they got off Canto Bight. And he's like, oh, I betrayed you guys. And guess what? Phasma's back. And they're like, okay. Phasma escaped a trash compactor on Starkiller Base right as it was exploding and comes back for this, and I guess. And I thought this was another like Lupita Nyong'o situation. Why get Gwendolyn Christie, who is absolutely phenomenal, one of my favorite characters on Game of Thrones, and just mask her up and put her to a couple punchlines every now and then. I think she probably throughout both movies had 8 lines, which is just a waste. I mean, obviously it's a plug to sell toys, because it's a badass looking uniform. It's kind of the Boba Fett type thing. But Phasma doesn't really do anything in this. So BB-8 is the ultimate Mary Sue in this. BB-8 can pretty much do anything. So when they get captured, BB-8's like gone. And the whole thing got foiled by like a BB-9E being like, hey, that's a trash can. And so I was like, whatever. Another droid in there, just sell more toys. Just not even a main character whatsoever. And then, shit's about to go down with Hodor, and she's like, oh, all the ships are getting off to the planet. However, they're getting blown up because the dude gave him information that Rose was opening her dumbass mouth about, and they're going to shoot him. So they're starting to shoot him. Hodor's like, oh, fuck this. And does one of the coolest shots in Star Wars. The hyperspace crash, which leads more questions like, has no one done this before? I've thought about that. Obviously it wouldn't be as fun if everyone's just like, oh, I'm gonna go, kamikaze you. But I think that maybe the shields were down on the ship. It wouldn't have worked if it was a shield. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe the shield's down because they were trying to get maximum firepower range. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever you want to say. But it leads to Snoke's ship getting all fucked up. And then BB-8's like, I'm an ATST, or whatever the new ones are called. They all have different, names. Then they get off the ship, and then they're, heading towards the planet. Rey got off with, the half lightsaber, which was really cool. Obviously, seeing a crystal for the first time in a lightsaber was really neat. Still waiting to see that saber be built. It's got to happen in this one, in 9, right? So they all end up getting, going to the planet. And I really, in this point in the movie, I got taken out because I was like, there's still a third act, fourth act? It felt like 4 acts, really. Because everything kind of tied up. It was about 2 hours. And then I was like, wait a minute. We haven't seen the red planet yet. And that is totally must be where they're going. So I don't sound like a dumbass anymore. I'm going to say Crate, which is the proper, I had to look it up. So everyone's on Crate now. And which is, it was so difficult to review this movie because there's 16 different storylines going on. After Captain Phasma is just wasted. One little tidbit though. The argument that why doesn't someone just wear a mirror to reflect all the lasers? Yeah, we see that. Like Rose shoots something at Phasma and it's like pink and it just goes off. I'm like, huh. So why not equip your army with this? I don't understand. So everyone's on Crate now. Just skip everything else because god damn, it's ridiculous. Already 50 minutes. So we're all on Crate. We're seeing, these crystal foxes that are... I remember reading something and Ryan Johnson's like, these crystal foxes are going to be real important to the storyline. And after watching it the first time, I was like, not really. they found a little hole, I guess, But watching it the second time, you really notice they just want to sell these goddamn toys because these crystal foxes are implanted in everything. Look at every shot when they're inside of the bunker and Crate, and you'll see a damn crystal fox. Like there's a point where Finn is talking after they crash land in, and there's one, and he's like 100 feet away, but goddamn it, he sure is there. And so they're like, well, we're gonna have to fight these gorilla walkers and all this bullshit, and then we got more Death Star technology because we can't think of anything new. The Death Star was pretty much the crown achievement of everything, even though it just didn't work. Really 3 times that they tried to do a Death Star-like thing. Which, again, leads the question, why didn't they just plant these gorilla walkers closer and the Death Star thing closer? Yeah, there's not a good answer to that. Because they have to have this really cool scene. And they have the part where, they're all coming out with their ships. They're all, jankety as shit. I really don't know, and watching it the second time, I really didn't understand what was the point. Like, obviously, visually, it looks great. There's a lot of really cool stuff in it. But what was the point of them going out there and really just getting destroyed? Like, because pretty much all of them die. They say, Poe's like, we need to, clear the way for what? Like, the people back, like, in the trenches? I didn't understand that whatsoever. So we get the visual battle. We see the guerrilla walkers, pretty much just blow shit up. They don't do anything special. They just blow shit up. And then, the Death Star thing's turning on. They're boring a hole through turning on, and then blah, blah, blah. Finn wants to go do this shit. I'm going to kill myself. And I was like, they're going to kill off Finn. Wow. Definitely thought he'd be around all 3 movies, but I get it. He's just a janitor. And then they don't. And I was like, God damn it, Rose. You like, I don't know, just commit. Which, I mean, if you watch logistically too, especially the second time, you'll see a scene where Finn is riding along the laser beam, and you see where everyone else is at in relation to him. There's no way Rose got there. She was going the opposite way, full speed, and then looped around because she came in from the side and then hit him out. And then, God, the kiss. There was the most forced kiss I've ever seen. In it was a new force power called Force Kiss. And then we get the hologram Luke coming in. And I thought the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, Luke dyed his hair or got a haircut? Like, he looks a lot younger. And he goes out, and which there was a reference earlier in the movie where he was like, well, do you expect me to go out there with a laser sword and face the whole Empire? At the end of the movie, Luke walks out with a laser sword facing the Empire. Very much a Sunny reference. So he goes out there, and Kylo, pissed, he's like, blast the shit out of that and fire everything. Really cool scene. And then Luke, obviously lives through that and just walks out. Really powerful. I was like, wow, that is really intense. Now, he's not there though. He's not doing that. It's a hologram. Like, that's not impressive. If he was actually there, because really we can get to the same end. Luke dies. Why don't we just have him there? For real. So we can have this whole let's watch Rey lift rocks. It's not that important. So when he walks out, does his little dirt off your shoulder bullshit, it was so cheesy. It's powerful in the moment. Kylo comes down. They start doing their little thing, which is a great scene. And I know someone pointed out, I saw it the second time. If you actually watch Luke's feet, they never leave the red, they never move the salt on top of the red planet. So you could tell, like, obviously he wasn't there. Kind of a cool little small thing. But yeah, it ends up being, see you later, kid. And Kylo's all pissed, and then it shows Luke, he's on, Ahch-To and just doing his little hover thing, and then he dies. And I was sitting there, I was like, wow. I felt that they did a huge disservice to Luke as a character, and just to kill him at the end. And I thought for, a little bit he might die. But the way that he died, even, I was like, damn, you're going to do him like this? Like, this is really how this is going to end. It was just a waste. It was a big waste of a character. And I mean, this is coming from I didn't like Luke. Luke was annoying as hell in the originals, but they definitely shouldn't have done him like that. Rey comes, saves the day, gets everyone out. And really, it's set up for 9, right? But if you're looking at everything, what changed? Rey doesn't really know anything more about the Force. We have the parentage thing, which I didn't even cover. Her parents are no one, which definitely feels like they're going to retcon and be like, Well, Kylo felt from his point of view that they were no one, but they were some, because I think people weren't happy with that. Mostly because the whole in between 7 and 8 was who's Snoke? Who were Rey's parents? Who, like, there was a lot of questions, and they didn't really even get answered. Or they got answered in like just really disappointing, like I didn't need Rey to be Rey Skywalker, you know. I needed a little more than they're nobody, or even say in, you know, episode 7, you know, my parents sold me here for drinking money. Terribly tragic, but you know, I learned to become a badass. But no, we were built up, and then it was just there was inevitable letdown. So at the end of it, you know, Rey doesn't know anymore about the Force. We have a shoehorned Rose character that, like, is there a love triangle? Who gives a shit? Finn didn't even care. He's like, what the hell? I was ready to die, and now I gotta kiss Rose. Like, I should have just died. You know, and one kind of scene, you're like, huh, Poe has never met Rey before. I didn't even think about that, but so it's kind of a neat little thing at the end. But Poe is now, you know, the leader, and he said, you know, turn back to Finn. But you know, they could have done that differently to develop his character. Now pretty much there's no one left, or we're just going to get random people from the outer reaches or the outer rim to come help, but no one was really responding, and that's it. That's episode 8. And I remember thinking, like, what am I going to rate this? Obviously it's not an original, so it has to be under the original 3. I liked Rogue One better. I liked Force Awakens better, so it's not in there. So automatically we're in prequel territory with this, and I rate it a 5 out of 10. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10 because half was good. Visually it was great. Music was good, you know, on par. You know, no like noticeable like bad music, no noticeable good music either. The sets were amazing though. It was good that they didn't really rely too much on the CGI characters, but when they did, those were the weaker parts of the movie. So I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. If I had to pick where I rank it, I'll have to do Empire, New Hope, Return, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith was the best out of the trilogy. The best out of the trilogy. The best out of the prequel trilogy. And I'd rather sit there and watch that than this. I'm probably not going to watch it again until maybe a year from now, maybe before 9's coming out. And so I'll rank this right under Sith, and then right above Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. So if you like this podcast or YouTube video, whatever format this is in, go ahead and give it a like. Man, you could subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these. This is my first one, so I'm going to start off the new year right. But if you have any more, you know, suggestions what movies you want reviewed, go ahead and hit me up, and you can follow me on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, every possible social media outlet at Mr. Gridiron Geek. That's the only one that was available cross-platform, so it makes it real simple for you guys. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. Attack of the Clones. So if you like this podcast or YouTube video, whatever format this is in, go ahead and give it a like. Man, you could subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these. This is my first one, so I'm going to start off the new year right. But if you have any more, you know, suggestions what movies you want reviewed, go ahead and hit me up, and you can follow me on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, every possible social media outlet at Mr. Gridiron Geek. That's the only one that was available cross-platform, so it makes it real simple for you guys. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.